I don't mean to sound hard-hearted about this, but I believe that if you reach a certain age, and if you really haven't achieved very much in your own terms, I don't think you can ascribe this to bad luck or a difficult childhood or any other external factor. I personally feel that your strength of character does come into question at that point. And let me make it clear that your definition of success may be different from the next person. I'm not implying that you need to have a fat bank account or a Rolls Royce to be successful. But if having those things is integral to your definition of success, then that's what you should be aiming for. When I talk about developing character, it's pretty hard to focus on character when you've got credit card payments to make and 100 other things to worry about. Well, here's my opinion. If these people had given a bit more thought to building a strong character over the years, maybe their credit card payments would be a little more manageable at this point. But it's never too late. According to Aristotle, 52 is the age at which a man's philosophy is fully formed. But it's okay to run a little behind schedule as long as you recognize it and do something about it. And you don't need volumes of books or the library in order to create a personal philosophy that will help you to achieve your goals. You can do that anywhere. You can do it right here. In fact, we could all do ourselves a favor by developing the philosophy of an ant. There are at least 2 reasons why ants are unique and important. For one thing, an ant always knows where it wants to go, and it keeps trying to find a way of getting there, no matter what. If you put a pebble in front of an ant, the first thing it does is try to find a way around the pebble. It tries to go one way. If it can't get around there, it tries to go the other way. And if it still can't get around, then it tries to climb over the pebble. And if for some reason it can't climb over the pebble, it will try to lift the pebble, even though the pebble may be hundreds of times larger than the ant itself. And if it finds it can't lift the pebble, it will look for other ants to help. And if all the ants working together can't lift the pebble, they will finally start digging a tunnel underneath it. And even if that doesn't work, they will literally start trying to gnaw their way through the pebble. How long will they keep trying? They'll keep trying until they die. Because the one thing they will never do is quit. That's the ant's philosophy of achievement, and we might all want to incorporate it into our view of the world. The other reason ants are important is because of what they do in the summer. During the summer, the ants plan for the winter. They don't have any credit cards. They don't use the present moment to create debts and liabilities for themselves in the future. They use the present moment to create assets for themselves. Do you remember the fable about the ant and the grasshopper? The grasshopper laughed at the ant for working so hard all summer. The grasshopper just enjoyed himself, leaping around in the high grass without a care in the world. And when the winter came, he starved to death, while the ant had plenty to eat. Remember, we've all been grasshoppers at some point in our lives. Just make sure you're not one now. Character is the means for transforming ideas into achievements. It's somewhat abstract in the sense that you can't lay your hand on it or point to it or weigh it on a scale, but in a very real sense, character is what allows you to get where you want to go. If you want to drive from your home to a store on the other side of town, you'll need an automobile with gas in the tank, and you'll need keys to start the car. But you'll also need to know how to drive. You'll need judgment based on life experience to tell you when to step on the brakes if the light up the street changes to red. You'll need a true intention to reach your destination so that you don't keep stopping for coffee and a piece of pie every 10 minutes. You'll need to know how much time to allot to the trip so you can get home in time for whatever else you have to do. And you'll need enough maturity to call and say you're going to be late if you get stuck in a traffic jam. You can't lay your hand on any of those things, and you can't measure them with a yardstick. But they're as important to reaching your destination as the car, or the gas, or the keys to start the engine. They are analogs of character. There are all sorts of ways to keep track of the condition of a motor vehicle. You can look at the tires to see whether they've worn out their tread. You can look at the odometer to see how long it's been since you've changed oil. and you can turn on a switch and then walk around the car to see if the headlights and the taillights are working properly. There are objective indicators of the condition of your car. Similarly, there are ways of objectively evaluating your achievements. Most people don't take advantage of them as often as they should, but they're available nonetheless. For example, you can put together a financial statement in order to determine your net worth. You can hire an appraiser in order to learn the market value of your house. You can compare where you were 10 years ago to where you are now in order to determine the degree of progress you've made in your life. As I've tried to explain, achievement depends on character in the same way that a successful drive to the grocery store depends on knowing when to apply the brakes and when to step on the gas. But how can you know if your character is in good enough shape to get you where you want to go? To continue the metaphor we've been using, there are ways of discovering whether you still know how to drive without having an accident. I believe there are ways of evaluating the strength of your character that are almost as clear as the depth of tread on a tire or the amount of gasoline in the tank of an automobile. In order to use these techniques for character evaluation, all you need is a commitment to be ruthlessly honest with yourself. At first, that kind of ruthless honesty may include a little bit of pain, but once you accept the fact that character is basic to achievement, you'll gladly pay the price. Just as the gas gauge of a car indicates full and empty, with several demarcations in between, you can learn whether your character has enough fuel to get you to your life's destination. You can learn to tell whether you're on full or empty or somewhere in between. But while a car runs on only one fuel that is indicated by a single gauge, character, in my opinion, can be evaluated by 4 different imaginary gauges. Here's the first one. On the right-hand side of the gauge, corresponding to the letter F for full on a gas gauge, I want you to imagine the letter R, which stands for refusal. And on the left side of that gauge, I want you to imagine the letter C, which stands for complacency. If your character is good and strong, there are certain things that you simply refuse to accept in yourself or in other people. In your work, you refuse to accept anything less than your best effort. That doesn't mean that things will always work out exactly as you hoped and intended, but that's not the point. There will always be variables you can't control, but your effort level should always be maxed out regardless. With your family, your commitment should be just as strong. You should simply refuse to compromise in any area where your family needs and welfare are concerned. And with yourself, in your personal life, you should similarly refuse to accept pettiness or dishonesty or unethical behavior in any form. That's the right-hand side of the first character evaluation gauge. On the left hand is the letter C, which stands for complacency. But it also could be the letters LIS, standing for let it slide, or even WTDA for what's the difference anyway. Ask yourself where you stand on that scale. Do you have enough good, strong refusal to achieve what you want to achieve? If not, it's time to make a pit stop right now. The second character rating gauge has the letter D on the right, and on the left is the letter M. The D stands for decision, and the M stands for maybe. Ask yourself, are you a person who comes to a fork in the road and turns right or left? Or do you stop the car, scratch your chin, and say, well, maybe I'll go this way, and then again, maybe I'll go that way. And in the end, you go nowhere. Think about the big issues that are facing you in your life right now. It could be that you want to leave your job and start a business of your own. It could be that you want to get married. In any case, are you the kind of person who comes to a decision and puts it into action? Or are you someone who says, well, maybe, but then again, maybe not? Now imagine a gauge with a W on one side and an A on the other side. The W should be in bright red or orange, while the A should probably be a dingy green or pale yellow. That's because the W stands for want, as in, I want it now. or I want it real bad, or I want it so much I'll do whatever it takes to get it. The W means you'll go to law school for 5 years at night while working full-time during the day because you want to be a lawyer. The W means you'll get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day to work on your novel because you want to be a writer. It means you'll travel from one end of the country to the other many times in order to find a doctor who can make your child well. I know people who have done all those things because they wanted something and eventually they got it. The A stands for apathy. That's where you really don't care what happens. And if you really don't care what happens, it's just as well because it certainly isn't going to be anything good. Now we come to the last of our imaginary character gauges. On the right-hand side is the letter P, and that stands for promise. And on the left-hand side is a letter F, and that stands for fear. If you are a person of strong character, you will promise yourself that you will achieve your goals or what? It doesn't matter, because you never consider that possibility. You have made a promise, and you're going to keep it. When you set out to drive to the grocery store, you don't stop at the doorway and think, what will I do if I don't make it? You simply intend to get to the grocery store. You know you're going to get there. You will get there. It's simply assumed. Fear is simply the inability to make a promise to yourself. It kicks in when you start thinking about all the bad things that can happen to you on the way to your destination. And before long, you're thinking, wouldn't it be easier just to stay home? Isn't it safer to just stay in bed? Isn't it better to pull the covers up over my head? In this discussion, we've been using the metaphor of going across town in a car. Let me conclude by referring to another little excursion, and it's one that I know for a fact you have already taken. When you were learning how to walk, you made a silent promise to yourself that you were going to do it. It may have been scary at times. You surely stumbled again and again. Tears surely fell from your eyes, but no matter. You didn't even think about that. Each time you fell, you forgot about it as soon as you regained your feet because you had promised yourself you were going to walk across the room. And you did it. How long did it take? Who cares? You did it.